What's going on, everyone? This is your boy Raymond Roots of The Blueprint, and today I want to talk to you guys and gals about the Sony A1. So recently Sony announced a beast of a camera, which is the Sony A1, and it features 8K recording and a 50 megapixel sensor, and you're able to output 16-bit RAW. But the question remains, is this camera for you? We're going to explore that in this episode, so go ahead and roll the intro. So of course, before we get started, if you like this video and the type of channel that we are becoming and the content that we are creating, then make sure you like these videos that we create. And of course, make sure you subscribe to our channel. It really does help us in our absolute brawl and fight against the YouTube algorithm, which we anticipate that we're going to absolutely kick its butt this year with you guys' help. So make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to hit 300 subscribers by the end of this month, and we do believe that that is possible with the help and support that we have received so far from you guys and gals. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Without further ado, let us do. Okay, so most of you probably know that about a week or two ago, Sony announced their brand new camera, the Sony A1, and I got that usual feeling that I do every time a new product releases. I need it. That was my initial reaction. But it's so expensive, I'm gonna have to either sell a kidney or rob a bank. And obviously, I'm not gonna sell a kidney, and I'm too scared to rob a bank. So what options are out there for me? But on a serious note, every time there's a major release, I get this feeling in my soul that I absolutely need this new equipment, but also that the equipment that I currently have, it's just not good enough. That's what I start feeling. I start seeing the flaws of my camera and my other equipment that I didn't see just a week prior to Sony announcing this. And honestly, this has been the case for years with these new camera releases. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to read out some camera models, and I'm not kidding. Every time these products were announced, I started getting this feeling that I had to have it. So I'm just going to go through the list of you guys. You tell me if I'm exaggerating. Sony A7S II, Sony A6500, Sony A7R3, Sony A9, Sony A7R4, the Panasonic S1, the Panasonic S1H, the Canon R5, the Canon R6, the Sony A7S III, the Sony FX9, the Sony FX6, the Red Komodo Kinfinity Edge, and now the Sony A1. Bruh. What I really want to address today is the legitimate stupidity, absolute stupidity of thinking that we need to upgrade to the next iteration of every single product that we own every single year. So before we get to that, I have to address the age-old question. Does gear matter? Absolutely. I think it does. I think gear absolutely 100% matters. And I think the people who are saying it doesn't matter are coming from two perspectives. One, create with what you have and stop focusing on what you don't have, which I think is a respectable and a respectable stance that I actually agree with. But the other side probably never have worked with products that they absolutely hate and equipment that sucks. So in that respect, I think that equipment matters to a certain extent, of course. But honestly, there's no point in discussing whether or not your equipment matters if you don't have the budget to upgrade. There's no reason to sit at home and daydream and to estimate when you think you can afford this product, or to even consider the fact that you think this product will help you to become a better business person. Is that you? Because I can tell you from firsthand experience, having the best camera does not mean that you get more business. It generally doesn't mean you get more business. And at the end of the day, if you're a freelancer or you're running a business, you're trying to make profit. Right? So if you're trying to make profit, you want to minimize your cost and not go out and invest in equipment, then you absolutely don't need to make the amount of money that you're making right now, or even to step up to the next step in the ladder. You don't need that extra equipment in most cases. But let us dig deeper into this whole concept of upgrading. And we're just going to use the Sony A7 I as an example. You have to ask yourself why you constantly think that you need new equipment that does exactly what your equipment does, but just a tiny bit better. In the case of the Sony A1, I'm guessing there's two unique selling points. One being the 50 megapixel sensor, and two being the 8K recording. So let's explore those two arguments. First unique selling point, the 50 megapixel sensor. Now, I'm gonna be very honest with you guys. If you have to ask yourself if you need a 50 megapixel camera, that answer alone is an answer of whether or not you need it. And the answer is a big fat no. And the reason why I'm saying that is that if you know you need 50 megapixels, you're pretty much aware that you need 50 megapixels. But if you have to question whether or not you need it, that most likely means you don't. There's not a whole lot of work that requires a 50 megapixel sensor. And every YouTuber's argument so far that I've seen is that you're able to crop. So let's explore that. With a 50 megapixel sensor, you can crop into pictures and kind of reframe it and change the composition the way that you want it to. So let me ask you a question. How often do you sit there and edit your pictures and wish that you could crop in 200%? If it's all the time or 90% of the time, then sure, go ahead, get a camera with 50 megapixels. If it's once in a blue moon, like it's the case for me, you don't need it. Let's just be honest, then you don't need it. Another question to consider is, where do you publish your work? Do you post on social media, or does your pictures end up on billboards? For most people, it's just social media and websites. And that can come in the shape of product photography, or that can come in lifestyle pictures, whatever the case may be. It usually ends up on social media or on someone's website. And if that's the case with the type of clients that you have, you don't need a 50 megapixel sensor. And here's maybe another thing to consider. If you have to crop in that much every single time, then maybe you need to start asking yourself why you don't get the composition right in camera. Composition is one of the most important aspects of photography, and relying on a high megapixel count to bail you out every single time, it just screams laziness to me. I understand that this doesn't apply to every single professional, but if you are one of those people who it does not apply to, you most likely are very aware that you need 50 megapixels. And that's exactly my first point. If you know that you need it, you don't have to ask yourself whether or not it's worth upgrading to. In short, if you need it, you know it. If you don't know if you need it, you probably don't need it. Second argument, 8K recording. Okay, man, things to consider before getting a camera that shoots 8K and outputs RAW. And take this from someone who actually owns a camera that shoots above 4K. My camera shoots 6K and it does also output RAW, and I upgraded from a normal standard mirrorless camera. Questions to consider. Do you have a computer that can process 8K footage? I did not. So I went out and recklessly upgraded my mirrorless camera to a cinema camera that shoots 6K. But my computer couldn't handle the files, so I had to make another big investment, which is the computer that I have behind me. That's another cost that you have to put into your equation. Obviously, you could just use proxies if you want to add that extra step into your workflow, but you have to consider these things before you go out and buy these cameras. Number two, do you have money for storage? Do you even know how big these files are? I'm shooting 4K. Those files are huge. I rarely shoot 6K, but those files are even bigger. And you want to go out and get a camera that shoots 8K. Do you have the money to upgrade your storage? Because at that type of resolution, you're going to run out of storage like that. So what are your plans for storage? Put that into your equation as well. And here is maybe the most important thing to consider before you go out and spend that much money. Do you have enough clients that will justify buying a camera that expensive, which will pay itself back through your clients? Is that the case with you? $1 million question. Do you have enough clients? If yes, cool, go for it. If no, then why are you focusing on 8K recording? The standard delivery is still 1080p, so you could go a long way with a 4K camera. And honestly, you can shoot 4K in maybe one of the cheaper mirrorless cameras. Now, don't take this the wrong way, but you probably don't need to focus on your equipment as much as you probably need to focus on your sales. Now, you might say, well, with 8K, you can crop in and you can reframe your image. And yes, you absolutely can. But that requires that you have the right computer and the right amount of storage, but also you have to start asking yourself, why am I not getting the composition right in camera? The same principle that I applied to the 50 megapixel sensor applies to 8K recording. If you need it, you know you need it. And if you aren't sure if you need it, most likely you don't need it. So you might say, well, you're going to future-proof yourself. But let's be honest, if you have this mindset of upgrading to the next iteration every single year, you're not going to keep that camera so long that 8K becomes standard. You're going to replace and get a new camera every single year or every other year. And then the argument of future-proofing kind of goes out the window. Now, if you're going to buy this camera and you're going to keep it for the next 5, 6, 7 years, then all right, you have an argument. But if not, if you're going to upgrade it next year or in 2 years and 3 years, You absolutely do not need 8K recording. And here's some perspective for you. The ARRI Alexa Mini, the camera body or the camera brain, as they call cinema cameras, that alone is $36,000. All right, $36,000, and that doesn't shoot above 4K. Keep in mind, this is a Hollywood grade camera that they used on Martin Scorsese's The Irishman and many other movies in Hollywood. So you have to ask yourself, what type of work do you do that requires a higher resolution than award-winning films in Hollywood? Again, I know that there are some people who have those type of clients. I'm guessing visual effects studios probably would benefit from higher resolution. The point is, I know that some people have those type of clients. And if you have those type of clients, you know it, you're aware of it. You know that you need 8K or Blackmagic's 12K camera. Good for you. Now the Sony A1 is around $6,000 if I remember the price correctly. My advice to you is, if you know that you need a 50 megapixel camera and 8K recording, then go for it. If you aren't sure about it, I would take that money, I'd buy a much cheaper camera, maybe the Sony A7S III, which is like half the price, and then invest in some better lenses, some good lighting, and all that other stuff. Now, once you've bought the camera that matches your business needs, you're gonna have extra cash in hand. That means you can spend that on marketing and creating a good business. And you know what? If you create a good business, you'll make more money, and eventually those type of purchases, such as the Sony A1 or the Sony FX9 or even higher RED cameras, ARRI cameras, those become more natural purchases because you can afford it. You have clients that justify those types of camera purchases. And you know what? If you've only had clients that want 1080p delivery or 4K delivery, and then out of nowhere, someone says, I want 6K or 8K, you can just rent. You can just rent and add that to the cost that you're selling the service to. There's no need for you to have a camera that shoots 8K if you're not going to shoot 8K regularly. Now, knowing all of this, I still kind of want the camera because I just think it's natural for everyone in a creative space that we do like the next big shiny thing. We want to upgrade. But I'm hoping that my common sense will be much stronger than my emotions and that I won't go and sell a kidney or rob a bank to get the camera. Now that's it for me, guys and gals. We're going to keep it short for this week's video. If you like this video, make sure you give it a big fat thumbs up. Leave a comment down in the description. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are you getting the camera? Are you not getting the camera? I want to hear why. Why not? Let me know in the comment section below. And of course, make sure you help us in reaching the goal of getting 300 subscribers by the end of this month. We're doing a giveaway within the next 2 weeks, but MIVisuals is going to talk a lot more about that when he drops his video next week. Oh yeah, of course, we have a podcast where we drop an episode every single Monday where we invite industry insiders who are talking about how they've built their business, how they've gotten clients. So make sure you subscribe to our podcast. We drop, like I said before, an episode every single Monday. Last week, we had someone talking about having Marvel, Disney, and Netflix as clients. And next week on Monday, we are getting a guy who created video filters for Instagram. The ones that you are using on Instagram today, he's the guy who created that. He's at Facebook as clients as well. You may know him as Denver Riddle or the Color Grading Central. He's on the podcast on Monday. So make sure you subscribe and you don't miss out on all this key knowledge from actual people who are making a living off of being creatives. So we're just going to wrap this up. Until next time, stay safe, stay creative, and of course, stay happy. Peace.